Run it up.
Welcome back. Love having this guy on the show. Is in it. He knows it. He's a senior NBA writer for The Athletic. Sam Amick is back. What is up, Sam? You know where we're going. Sam. We are starting with the Joel Embiid situation. I just feel like this has been a bad dream. And if I feel like that, I can't imagine what they feel in Philly. But what do you know as the latest? Are we close to a medical procedure here?
It feels like it, guys, and good morning. Danny, good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, my man. Long time.
Chandler, I saw you making the rounds at Crypto the other night. You didn't get to say hello. But
rude. Oh, because he was big-wigging with Mark Cuban. Just
he was waving. He had folk. Yeah, exactly.
Kissing babies.
No. Please.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, you feel for the big fella. It does feel like we're getting close to a resolution here. You know, and that's, I think, first and foremost where you start. I'd like to think everybody takes a minute to just think about the human side. This guy wants to play ball and his body can't get right. And then obviously for the Sixers, it's just an absolute disaster. You talk about a guy who is your everything, that you have built everything around, and a knee that has been causing problems for a year and a half plus, you know, tried to push through. But the combination of his contract, Paul George's contract, uncertainty all around, you know, I think from Daryl Morey on down, certainly Nick Nurse, they are going into, I think, a potentially pretty tumultuous time here.
Was there because obviously he's not been 100% for a while, right? But they just, you could tell they wanted to give him every shot, every opportunity to try to right the ship. Was there a final straw here? Like, what was the thing that finally said, all right, we've waited this long, we're shutting it down?
To be honest with you, Michelle, I don't have total clarity. I mean, I think before they sent word that this is the road they were going to go down, you already had the noise and the chatter about the competitive advantages that came with shutting him down, and the fact that it just made less and less sense to put him through this and to push through this because of how lost of a season it was, because of the draft implications that come with losing games, which is not where their focus is, but it is a reality of today's game and the calculus. And so, but bottom line, he just isn't himself. And for me, it's been a tricky story to report on and cover, because if you go back to even the offseason in the summer and the Olympic run, what struck me is that you would get, you know, different versions of the story about, okay, he took part in every shoot around, every practice with Team USA, but he wasn't himself. You know, he was pushing through. And you started to realize that there wasn't a quote unquote setback. And I know we talked about that on the show before, and it was just like, man, it never got right. And it really is going back all the way to that Warriors game. And I was there that night last season when the whole world was kind of coming down on his head and you know, coming after him because he hadn't played in Denver against Joker. And the whole narrative, which was unfortunate, was that he just wasn't willing to take this guy on. And you just think back on that and to think how we've gone from, you know, that moment to here, where it's obviously a black and white physical situation, is really too bad.
Sam, so let me ask you this. Obviously, he's owed $248 million over the next 48 years, and you hear these reports that the 76ers could now petition for a medical retirement. Is this a real possibility? Is there actually any legs on this? Because there's been a lot of guys making a lot of money that have been hurt, and I've never really seen this go through.
Yeah, it is an option. It's, I think, somewhat subjective in terms of, you know, it's almost the league digging into the medicals and deciding if this is relief that they want to grant. You know, I think that it's something that, you know, in the CBA, we'll see what they do. You know, I don't have total clarity there either, Chandler, on, you know, what direction this is going to go. A lot of reporting this morning, obviously, on that. But if you're the Sixers, you are looking for an escape hatch. And that's nothing against Joel, but you are looking for a way. Just because in the absence of it, you're talking about, you know, Sixers fans not having much reason to tune in for the next half decade.
And now let's take a look at this summer. You have Joel, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey. They're all owed $715 million. Is there any flexibility with this roster moving forward this summer? Like, how can they better their team? Do they just run it back with, you know, a surgically improved Joel Embiid? What's their option?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one bright spot is Tyrese. Obviously, you know, he's making his money. He's worth that contract, and he's healthy. Knock on wood. You know, Paul can still produce. He's just not part of a championship landscape like they had hoped. And you know, that's not nothing. From there, you know, Jared McCann is a bright spot. But I don't see, I mean, really, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Not able to get through this physically, and if they don't get the relief, the Sixers, not to be blunt about it, but they're pretty good.
All right, moving along. Enough about the Sixers. Another team, though, that is kind of in the trenches, the Phoenix Suns, Sam. There have been reports that, Coach Bud has been telling Book to kind of quiet it down in the timeouts and not be too much of a voice. What's going on over there? Like, what do you see happening?
It's tough. To see Book, talk like he did after that press conference the night before that story from Chris Haynes came out. That's not his nature to publicly, I think, run that hot, if that makes sense. And I think it reflects, to steal a word from colleague and friend Ramona Shelburne at ESPN, I think it does reflect some of the toxicity of the moment. If you have Devin Booker, your franchise centerpiece, who is incredibly selective with his words and a guy who has never had a hard time nailing his own messaging, if that makes sense, for him to come out and talk about how everybody's too quiet. And now we know the context, right? That he's basically saying, like, stop trying to tell me to be quiet. This is what needs to happen. It's not a good look. And you heard some of this stuff in the months ahead is that Coach Budenholzer, I think from a connectivity standpoint with the guys in the locker room, it hasn't been there. The messaging with different choices that he's made, even when Nick Richards came to town, I think he was kind of done with him pretty quickly, which is really tough for a front office that just went out and got this big guy to try to help. The Kevin Durant stuff, first and foremost with KD, Kevin has every right to be frustrated. I think that, thinking about moving him is one thing. To do it without communicating with a guy who's an all-time great and blindsiding him the way they did before the deadline, that's another mark against, kind of the management within this group. So the on-court results are one thing, and we all know how much they've struggled. But it is now, I feel like, really opening the door for anything and everything being possible in Phoenix. And for some of the other teams around the league, that's pretty exciting because we know that the Houstons of the world have been looking at Devin Booker, and KD's certainly going to have a market, and we'll see what ends up happening with him this summer. But really bad across the board.
I mean, they just fired Frank Vogel. You got Bud. Do you think they after the season, do you see a big shakeup happening? Do you see them trying to change another coaching happen? Do you see, is KD, is it a given that he's already out? Or is Brad and Book trying to get out as well? Like, what do you see happening?
5-year, $50 million for Bud. I don't think they can get rid of him yet, right?
Lord.
I don't know. I mean, I was going to say to your question, Danny, I just don't know I know the depths of Matt Ishbia's checkbook from a financial standpoint. I don't know the depths of his checkbook from a tolerance, kind of like, it's like being at the craps table and you're down so big and you just keep going all in, all in, all in. That's how he has managed this. This is an ownership and an owner who has come in with that kind of, rookie mentality, if you will, not trying to be disrespectful to Matt, but it's just, he's trying to reinvent the wheel or going at it in the kind of way that backfired almost at every single turn. Yes, I think Kevin gets moved this summer. I don't think that it's tenable there. Kevin is being professional right now. I kind of loved his quote last night when, they get boat raced and he tells the media that they embarrass themselves and the fans. Like, you have this sense of, like, he's being a pro and he's trying to play ball. But Brad does love being in Phoenix. So that's one of those things where we'll see, I think his wife's probably going to weigh in on that one as well, as typically is the case. And he's got the no trade clause. But another situation, man, you guys are hitting me with all the doom and gloom today. I mean,
there's
Phoenix,
nothing happy here.
Oh, we're not done yet either.
Oh, yeah, there's more. There's more.
I was about to say, Sam, I got some more doom and gloom for you.
Okay, here we go.
Man, you reported on the leaks coming out of the Mavericks that LUKA enjoyed his hookah and he enjoyed his beer. How much was that legitimate that the Mavericks felt like he was going to start breaking down over the next 2 or 3 years?
It's pretty legitimate, and it's funny, Lou, like, and not to play my violin, but in this job, the part that does drive me crazy is, like, when people get mad because we report the reasons that certain teams did certain things, we're not endorsing that idea. You know what I mean? Like, we're not co-signing on that idea. In fact, I reported that within a column where I made it very clear how bad of an idea I thought it was to trade LUKA. Now, that being said, there's very strong indications that was a major factor for Dallas. And I think the two things go together, right? Like the off-court habits with the physical concern. There is certainly a messaging and a narrative that Luka 5 years from now is going to fall apart physically. Now, that is a hell of a thing to kind of put out there, and I'm certainly not the only reporter, who has been told that. Because guess what? Like, time's going to tell. We're going to see, let's run this back, no pun intended, in 5 years and talk about what the man said and see how Luka is looking in that Lakers jersey. If I had to guess, it's not going to age very well. But absolutely, the nightlife, the drinking combined with the physical stuff. I heard your guys' conversation about LeBron earlier. The Lakers are certainly hoping that Luka leans into LeBron and does pick up on his habits, does, become more of that guy. Just a quick story for you that I enjoyed greatly the other night. After the Lakers game, in the locker room, I run into Mike Mancias, the famous trainer of LeBron. The guy, yes. And Mike is the one who has been behind the scenes all these years helping LeBron keep his body right. And Mike, I don't think he'd mind me sharing, he kind of shared a funny story about how his wife and kids are kind of routinely asking him, like, Dad, like, is Bron going to retire at some point? Do we get you back? And his family is waiting on the wing.
Waiting for 22 years.
Nope. At least 5 more years. 5.
He's not going anywhere.
Sam, I'll give you something great. LeBron's been playing sensational. You just talked about it, his lineage and what he's been able to do, possibly being a positive example for Luka. With his averages right now, do we see him having a legitimate chance at making first team NBA this year?
I think so. I love the question, Luke, because my mind's been on that. Like, I was even thinking, I had to do, I didn't have to, but ESPN and Tim Bontemps has their anonymous MVP poll a couple times a year, right? So I submitted my 5 a couple weeks ago, was thinking about how my top 5 looked on MVP. And this is directly, part of your question is if you're first team All-NBA, then you might be top 5 MVP as well. Yeah. And his numbers reflected. My only hang up that I am starting to kind of get over a little bit is that, like, the first 6 weeks of the season, and this was out there, but, like, there was some frustration with the Lakers at the way LeBron was competing, that it wasn't the same guy. And they were a little confused about, kind of where his head was at. So it was like he got off to a tough start. The on-off numbers at that point were just not the type of thing we'd ever seen from LeBron. Like, for that short little stretch, they were actually significantly better with him off the floor than they were with him on. But, man, he put that behind him. He's been on a heater for a couple months now. And to see him click the way he has with Luka and have a team that is elite, those are the type of things that could typically lead to first-team All-NBA.
He did take a week off.
I'll give him another week.
I should take a week off.
Cabo does wonders for you for a week in the middle of the season.
Take another week. You're going to play like this, I'll give him another week.
You know what? We should all take a week off,
Right
Sam. We'll come back refreshed, better than ever. It'll be great for everybody that we work with.
We're literally doing that next week.
You literally take weeks off all the time.
We're literally doing it next week.
No, you live in Cabo. So, Sam, Anthony Edwards, we know about the technicals. Now he's living on that fine line of can't get enough. Are you mad at me?
No, my heater's on. Too hot.
Okay, I was like, wait, what's going on?
He's like,
no, I was like, I'm sorry, it was not a rude question. Yeah,
no.
Was he frustrated? Look, we know all the changes they made and where the T-Wolves are and how they've looked from night to night on different occasions. But is he frustrated? Is it basketball related? Is it just, you know what, this is his year to be the tech guy? Like, what are we looking at?
I mean, I certainly can't speak for Ant, but the elephant in the room is, no Karl Anthony Towns. Julius Randle gets hurt. Expectations that come from their deep playoff run last year, the spotlight that came with Team USA, Anthony Edwards had quickly become everybody's favorite young NBA star and kind of a he can't do any wrong type of guy. Then you start losing games. Then you start having, a system on the floor that is everything's harder, right? Like, Cat had a really good year, and they function very different than they do right now. I mean, it's ironic, or at least – I noticed last night, this is a career high in scoring for Ant, around 27 a game. And in a vacuum, that sounds like success. I don't think he would agree that it's been a successful year. It's been a frustrating year. And you're seeing that, when it comes to how fired up he's getting on the court. It's just, youth, maturity, stuff that he...
Ejections, technicals.
Oops.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting there baseline not too far the other night in that Lakers game when he chucked the ball into the stands and almost took Maverick Carter's head off in the meantime. Yeah, like, you know, I mean, it's crazy because you could see him, the wheels were turning. He held that ball with one hand for like a legit 5 seconds. The ref is just like being on the playground, like, can I have the ball? Can I have the ball? It was like, nope, I'm going to chuck it, you know. He'll get there, but he's still a young guy.
Got to get Julius and Rudy back.
Well, Julius is back, but Rudy, I don't know what's going on there.
Sam, let's wrap this thing up with a positive note. Cleveland Cavaliers, they've been balling. They're on a 10-game win streak. They had an outrageous comeback against the Celtics the other night. They were up down 25-3. Tatum, Brown, they're all telling them, get him out of here.
That was rough.
That didn't age very well. Are people around the league finally respecting this team? Do they still think the Celtics beat them in a series? Like, what do they have to do to kind of get to win in the playoffs? Like, where are they at right now in people's eyes?
Yeah, I think they're like the classic. I mean, you're an on-paper team until you're not. You know what I mean? Like, OKC's the same thing. You look at OKC, and not to get off the Cavs, but, you know, greatest point differential in the history of the game, and we still look at them as an on-paper team because they haven't done it. So I do have Cleveland in that same category, but at the same time, do people respect them? Do they believe in them? I think so, because they check every single box. You know, Kenny Atkinson has done an incredible job coaching-wise. Evan Mobley is a rising star. Donovan Mitchell and what he's done, I love his season so much when it comes to you talk about maturity with Ant, right? Like Donovan being mature enough to realize my numbers are going to dip a little bit, but I'm going to empower Darius Garland. I'm going to be a leader, and I'm going to make it about the entire group instead of just myself and my own, individual aspirations. That's the kind of stuff that could lead to a long run and could lead to a championship. That game the other night, I know my buddy and colleague Joe Varden wrote about it, and he praised the heck out of him, but he talked about how it's still just a regular season game, and I get that. But, man, 25-3 to start the game.
That's why I was like, I'm not going to watch. Oops, no, I watched.
Literally, I don't really get in my emotions ever during games. You're just watching. When I saw 25-3, I was legitimately bummed. Like, man, I wanted to see this game. And I thought it was over. And then they come.
That's when you put a money line bet to come back. Except
what would that have paid?
By the way, Sam, you're usually in LA a lot. Is there a particular reason why you have not come to studio to hang out?
There's not. I just wait for that invite.
He's a busy man.
And secondly, what's the deal with the toucan? I've meant to ask you that the last 6 times you've been on.
That is hilarious. That's a good question. Combination of the Irish lineage in the family. The Guinness.
Toucan Sam.
Toucan Sam.
Yeah. Does it move? Does it move?
No, it doesn't move.
Right.
I've got shout out my editor.
Some fish that flap different.
I like it.
I got an editor, Sergio Gonzalez, who came up with Toucan Sam, basically as a reporter, like sticking your nose in things, right? Like that's.
Shout out, Sergio.
I thought it was like a Jimmy Buffett thing, but I was like, but it's not the same logo. So, okay, we all got it wrong. Well, maybe Lou got it right. Sam, we appreciate it every
Good to see you, brother. Hope to see you soon, man.
We will talk soon.
Likewise. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
We'll be right back.
Run it back, run it over, run it back, run it over.